A millionaire visits one of his stores and sees an employee being humiliated by the manager when he... Welcome to our channel. Before we begin, please give us a like and subscribe so we can continue creating stories like this. It was just another day at the bustling city shopping mall, where bright lights and eye-catching displays attracted hundreds of shoppers. Among the crowd, one man stood out for his elegant bearing and innate confidence. This was Edward Salazar, a millionaire known not only for his fortune but also for his firm character and commitment to business ethics. Edward had built his empire through years of hard work, dedication, and a clear vision. From his modest beginnings, he had learned to value every penny and to understand the true meaning of effort. Throughout his career, he had invested in various sectors, from real estate to technology, as well as fashion and food. But what truly set him apart from other entrepreneurs was his focus on the well-being of his employees and social responsibility. For him, success was not measured solely in numbers, but also by the positive impact he could create in his community. Despite his wealth, Edward maintained a relatively simple lifestyle. He preferred to drive a car that did not attract too much attention and dress in classic, understated clothing. He firmly believed that a person's true value lies in their actions, not appearances. This had earned him respect not only from his peers, but also from those who worked for him. Edward often said, "True greatness is measured by how you treat others," a mantra he carried with him to every meeting and event. Deep down, Edward felt a great responsibility toward his employees. He knew they were the ones who made his success possible, and always strove to create a healthy and motivating work environment. He implemented training programs, encouraged open communication, and promoted diversity in his companies. However, he was also aware that he could not always be present to supervise every detail, and that worried him. That morning, Edward decided to visit one of his flagship stores, a place where high-quality products, designed by him and his creative team, were sold. Upon entering the establishment, he was greeted with genuine smiles and cordial hellos from the staff. He paused briefly to chat with some employees, asking them about their work experiences and listening attentively to their comments. This type of interaction was crucial for Edward. It allowed him to remain connected to the day-to-day reality of his businesses. As he walked through the store's well-lit aisles, he noticed something that seemed off. In the distance, he saw a young employee named Sophia, who appeared to be having an uncomfortable conversation with the store manager, a man named Richard. As he got closer, he was able to hear fragments of their exchange. Richard was speaking in a raised tone, gesturing with frustration, while Sophia kept her head down and avoided eye contact. Edward felt a pang in his heart as he observed how Richard was treating Sophia. It was clear that she was being publicly humiliated in front of her co-workers. The young woman had always been dedicated and hard-working. He remembered seeing her arrive early to prepare the store before it opened to the public. Now she was being stripped of her dignity in front of everyone. Edward's expression hardened as he witnessed this injustice. He could not allow this to continue under his watch. In that moment, he understood that he had to act, not just as a businessman, but as a human being committed to the values he had always defended. With determination, he decided to step into the situation. He approached the small group where Sophia and Richard were, feeling the tension mount as every eye turned toward him. Edward knew that this was a crucial moment not only for Sophia, but also for all the employees present. It was an opportunity to show them that respect must prevail over any form of abuse. Upon reaching them, Edward spoke directly to Richard in a firm yet calm voice. "This is unacceptable," he said without hesitation. His intense gaze reflected both authority and compassion. "Here, every employee deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. We cannot allow this kind of behavior." The millionaire's intervention marked a turning point in that little store in the shopping mall. Beyond the immediate conflict between Richard and Sophia, it was a reflection of Edward's broader commitment to a healthy and fair work environment for all his workers. Edward Salazar had planned his visit to the store with enthusiasm. It was a ritual he had established over the years, a practice that allowed him to connect with the essence of his business and most importantly, with the people who made it possible. Upon arriving at the shopping mall, he felt that mix of nervousness and excitement that always accompanied him. He knew that every visit was an opportunity to learn, to listen, and to observe. With a genuine smile, he got out of his car and headed for the store entrance. The automatic doors opened before him, revealing a spacious, well-lit space. The shelves were carefully organized, displaying products that reflected his vision and creativity. As he walked down the aisle, Edward paused to admire some of the new collections, the result of his team's hard work. It was a moment of personal pride for him to see how his ideas came to life in every product. However, beyond the items on display, what really interested him were the people behind them. Edward deeply valued human relationships. He knew that a successful business depended not only on good products, but also on a motivated, committed team. That's why, upon entering, he greeted the employees in the store warmly. He stopped to chat with some of them about their work experiences, asking how they felt in their roles and whether they had faced any recent challenges. Each conversation was an invaluable source of information for Edward. He listened attentively to his staff's concerns, mentally noting what they needed and wanted to improve in their workplace environment. For him, those moments were essential. They allowed him to understand a company culture from a closer, more intimate perspective. He knew that success could not be built only from the top. It was essential to know the foundations on which his empire was supported. The store's atmosphere was generally positive. Employees worked as a team and showed enthusiasm about serving customers. However, Edward was also aware that not everything was perfect. He had heard rumors about certain communication problems between some managers and their teams. That's why he remained particularly alert to any sign of discontent or tension. As he continued exploring the store, he noticed how some employees smiled at him. His presence created an air of confidence and motivation. Many knew Edward genuinely cared about them and the work environment. However, as he went deeper into the establishment, he sensed a shift in the atmosphere. The smiles began to fade, and the cheerful chatter turned into tense silence. That was when he heard raised voices from the back of the store. Intrigued and worried at the same time, he decided to investigate the matter. He could not ignore that uncomfortable feeling telling him something was not right. The store had gone from a place full of positive energy to one where tension was palpable. As he got closer, he could make out Richard, the manager, in a heated argument with a young employee named Sophia. She seemed visibly affected by the confrontation. Her face showed distress as she tried to defend herself against the manager's reproaches. Edward gritted his teeth when he heard some disparaging words directed at her. In that instant, he realized that his visit had taken an unexpected turn. This was no longer just about observing how the business was run. Now he was facing a critical situation where the fundamental values he had always championed, respect and dignity in the workplace, were at stake. Edward knew he had to act decisively. The importance of these visits went beyond learning about how his stores operated. They also involved being a leader willing to step in when necessary. At that critical moment, he understood that he could not allow such humiliation to occur under his watch. Aware of the impact his intervention would have not only on Sophia but on all the employees present, he took a deep breath to calm himself before making the decisive move forward. He felt responsible not only as the owner of the business, but also as a defender of the emotional and professional well-being of every person who contributed to his success. And so began a new chapter for Edward Salazar, one in which each store visit would not only be a chance to observe and interact with his team, but also a firm commitment to creating a work environment where everyone could feel valued and important. The store's atmosphere was mostly vibrant and full of energy. Employees moved about, attending to customers with smiles and a genuine kindness that reflected Edward Salazar's philosophy. However, beneath that polished surface, underlying tensions began to emerge, revealing issues that could not be ignored. The employees knew each other well, and overall they enjoyed good camaraderie. They laughed and shared stories while organizing products and serving customers. Most of them took pride in working for a company that valued quality and service. However, there was an air of uncertainty when it came to management. Some employees had started whispering about the way Richard, the manager, was running things. While many respected his experience, others felt his authoritarian style was creating a tense environment. Amid this atmosphere was Sophia, a young employee who stood out for her dedication and unwavering effort. Since joining the team, she had proven herself to be a committed worker. She always arrived early to make sure everything was ready before opening and stayed late to help with any additional tasks that might come up. She was often the first to volunteer to cover shifts or help her co-workers when they needed it. Sophia was known for her positive attitude and eagerness to learn. She was passionate about her job and worked hard to provide excellent customer service. Many regular customers recognized her and asked for her specifically. It was clear she had a natural talent for connecting with people, something Edward greatly appreciated in his employees. Yet despite her dedication and constant effort, Sophia had begun to feel discouraged by how Richard treated her. Although he was experienced in the sector, his approach often came off as rigid and lacking in empathy. His management style left little room for flexibility or dialogue. There were moments when he seemed more focused on maintaining control than on fostering a collaborative environment. That morning, while Edward was strolling through the store, Sophia was busy organizing a new product section. She wore a smile on her face as she helped a customer choose an item. Her energy was contagious. Even other employees could not help but smile when they saw her working with such enthusiasm. However, everything changed abruptly when Richard decided to step in. At first, Sophia paid little attention to Richard's direct criticism as he began to point out minor mistakes in her work. She tried to explain her decisions about how she had arranged the products, but he didn't seem interested in listening. As the conversation went on, Richard raised his voice, drawing the rest of the team's attention. The discomfort in the air grew rapidly. Co-workers began glancing at each other, feeling the weight of the moment. Some tried to focus on their own tasks to avoid getting involved, while others felt rising indignation as they watched Sophia being treated this way. Edward drew closer, initially trying to stay on the sidelines to observe without abruptly interfering, but he could not help feeling his heart beat faster at the injustice he was witnessing. Sophia continued trying to defend herself calmly, but the manager's pressure was overwhelming. Her face showed signs of distress, each word from Richard hitting her like an unstoppable wave. Despite the hostile treatment she was receiving, Sophia maintained her dignity. It was clear how much it hurt to be humiliated in front of her colleagues. However, she refused to let fear or shame defeat her. A spark of resilience shone in her eyes. She knew who she was and how valuable she was to the team. The situation reached a critical point where Edward decided it had gone on long enough. He realized that he could not remain a spectator while one of his best employees was publicly humiliated. It was time to stand up and defend the values he believed in so strongly: mutual respect and dignity in the workplace. That was how the work environment drastically changed in the Millionaire's eyes. What had begun as a routine visit was now a pivotal moment, not just for Sophia, but for all the employees present. Everyone in that store deserved to be heard and valued, and Edward was determined to make sure that happened. Tension in the store hung thick in the air as Edward watched from a distance. The argument between Richard and Sophia had escalated quickly from an exchange of ideas to a personal attack. The manager, visibly frustrated, began using disparaging language that echoed through the store. "Why do you always have to make everything complicated, Sophia? I don't understand how someone so inefficient can be in charge of this section," Richard said, his voice filled with contempt. His words fell on Sophia like a crushing weight, and she tried to remain composed, but her face showed a mixture of sadness and distress. Around them, the other employees stopped what they were doing. Some looked away, unable to face the situation, while others traded worried looks. It was evident everyone felt deeply uncomfortable watching their co-worker treated in this way. Most knew how dedicated Sophia was, and seeing their manager hurl hurtful remarks left a bitter taste in their mouths. "You're always doing whatever you want. Don't you know how to follow simple instructions? This isn't the first time you've messed up," Richard continued, without a trace of empathy in his tone. Each word was like a dagger to Sophia's confidence. She felt her cheeks burn. Tears threatened to well up, but she fought hard not to be overcome by humiliation. "Richard, please." A nearby co-worker tried to intervene, but the manager completely ignored him. It was clear he wasn't willing to stop or listen. Instead, he carried on with his verbal assault. "If you can't do this job properly, maybe you should reconsider whether you're fit to be here." His words echoed through the air like funeral bells. Everyone felt a knot in their stomach upon hearing such a direct insult. They knew how valuable Sophia was to the team and how hard she had worked to prove it. The injustice of that moment was heartbreaking. Sophia lowered her gaze, trying to find strength within herself as her surroundings seemed to fade away. Being humiliated so publicly was devastating, but she still clung to the hope that it would end soon. She did not want her co-workers to see her as giving up. She wanted to show them she could stand strong even in the face of the hardest adversity. The group's response was silent yet powerful. Some employees started whispering among themselves, sharing comments about how inappropriate Richard's behavior was. Their expressions were full of disapproval. No one could believe what they were witnessing. A few even dared offer Sophia whispered words of encouragement. "Don't pay attention to him," they said, their gestures showing solidarity. Edward observed all this from his vantage point, feeling his indignation grow inside him. His heart pounded as he watched his employees slowly become a victim under the manager's verbal attack. In that moment, he knew he had to intervene. He could not allow Richard to continue humiliating Sophia without consequences. With determination, Edward stepped forward and approached the group, aware that all eyes were now on him. The atmosphere changed instantly. The whispering stopped, and almost tangible tension filled the space. "Richard," Edward began, his voice firm yet controlled, "this is unacceptable." The millionaire's interruption caught everyone by surprise, including Richard. It was clear he wasn't expecting to be confronted in the midst of his tirade. Whispering resumed among employees, and some gave hopeful smiles as they saw their leader taking action. Edward went on, "Sophia has been an exemplary employee, and she did not deserve to be treated like that in front of her co-workers." His words resonated strongly, signifying a shift in the workplace environment. Sophia slowly looked up at Edward. There was a mixture of gratitude and amazement in her eyes. The millionaire knew he was not just offending Sophia. He was also sending a clear message to all his employees about what it meant to work in his company, mutual respect and dignity for every team member. Richard was left speechless at the unexpected intervention, realizing that he had crossed a line he should never have crossed. The situation had changed drastically, and although he tried to argue in defense of his management style, Edward had already taken charge of the moment. As Edward spoke with authority and resolve, many employees felt a wave of relief seeing how their leader stood up for what was right, a healthy work environment in which no one had to fear being humiliated or belittled. Edward Salazar watched the scene with a heavy heart. Each hurtful word from Richard felt like a direct blow to his principles. The discomfort weighed on him, and he was filled with both indignation and sadness as he witnessed Sophia, a dedicated employee, being treated this way. It was a moment he had never imagined seeing in one of his own establishments. While listening to managers' excessive criticism, Edward reflected on the corporate culture he had cultivated over the years. He had worked tirelessly to build an environment where every employee felt valued and respected. The thought that one team member could humiliate another was unacceptable to him. It went against everything he stood for as a leader. In his mind, Edward recalled the fundamental values he had always championed: respect, empathy, and collaboration. He knew that business success was not determined solely by numbers and financial reports, but also by the emotional and professional well-being of his employees. Seeing how Richard, someone he had entrusted with leading a team, behaved with such contempt made him question some of the decisions he had made in his company. The scene played out like a bad dream. He felt time slow as Sophia tried to maintain her composure under an unjust attack. Her gaze, full of pain and confusion, pierced him like an arrow. Edward understood it was time to act. He could not stand by while this happened right in front of him. However, doubt gnawed at him. Had he inadvertently created a culture where such behaviors could thrive? As Richard continued his contemptuous speech, Edward thought back to previous conversations he'd had with his management team. He had noticed certain tensions in the work environment and had heard rumors about a lack of communication between some managers and their teams. Still, he had never imagined it could escalate into something as humiliating as what he was witnessing. "I can't allow this," he murmured to himself, feeling anger and disappointment morph into resolve. He knew he had to intervene, not just for Sophia, but also to send a clear message about what it meant to work at his company. Restoring a sense of community and respect among all team members was vital. As his thoughts churned, Edward recalled stories of other entrepreneurs who had transformed their organizations by focusing on workplace culture. He realized his own company could be better. It had to be a place where every voice was heard and respected, where mistakes were seen as opportunities to learn rather than as weapons to belittle others. The image of Sophia, enduring Richard's critical gaze, propelled him to act quickly. The discomfort had reached a breaking point. He could no longer ignore the reality unfolding before him. Reflection on his own responsibility as a leader became a call to action. With renewed determination, Edward stepped forward toward the group. The firm look on his face carried a clear message. He would not tolerate any form of abuse or humiliation in his company. It was time to show his unwavering commitment to the values he had always defended. When he addressed Richard, his words came out with authority and conviction. "This is unacceptable," he said without hesitation. Everyone present felt a palpable relief upon hearing those words. They knew they were being defended by someone who genuinely cared about them. Looking at Sophia and then at the team, Edward felt a deep connection with each one of them. He was not just their boss. He was someone ready to fight for them and ensure a fair and healthy work environment. In that decisive moment, he realized this incident could be the catalyst needed to initiate profound changes in his organization. Reflecting on the company culture not only allowed him to recognize his past oversights, but also to envision the future he desired. A company where every employee had a voice and a vote, where differences were celebrated, and where mutual respect reigned above all else. It was an ambitious vision, but Edward was determined to make a reality. That afternoon would mark a turning point, not only for Sophia, but for every employee under his wing. The transformation would begin at that crucial moment, where each action would help build a corporate culture based on firm values and deep humanity. At that instant, Edward Salazar fully understood what it meant to be a true leader, always standing up for what was right and caring for the collective well-being above all else. The tension in the store had reached its peak. Edward, his heart pounding, took a determined step into the heart of the conflict. His co-workers had stopped whispering. All eyes were fixed on him, waiting to see what would happen. The atmosphere felt heavy, thick with a mixture of anticipation and fear. Resolutely, Edward positioned himself in front of Richard, the manager, who was still caught up in his verbal tirade against Sophia. The millionaire's gaze was intense, yet his face showed no hatred, only a deep disappointment over what he was witnessing. "Richard," Edward began, his voice ringing with authority, "this is absolutely unacceptable." The manager, caught off guard by the sudden confrontation, was momentarily speechless. He clearly hadn't expected to be challenged in the middle of his attack. The employees again fell silent, holding their breath to see how Richard would react to the millionaire's firmness. Edward continued, "I can't allow an employee to be treated like this in my company. Sophia has proven to be an exemplary worker and deserves to be respected just like anyone else here." His words were clear and firm. Each syllable carried significant weight that resonated with everyone present. "Respect and dignity are fundamental values in this place," Edward insisted, looking directly into Richard's eyes. "We're not just here to do business. We're here to build a community based on trust and mutual support." What happened just now is a clear example of the opposite. Sophia, though still visibly affected by the situation, felt a wave of relief begin to replace her distress upon hearing Edward defend her. The supportive looks from her co-workers gave her strength, She knew she was not alone in that difficult moment. Edward spoke with passion. Each one of you as employees plays a crucial role in this company's success. You're not just here to fulfill assigned tasks. You're fundamental to our vision and mission. Every mistake is an opportunity to learn and grow together. A heavy silence filled the space as the millionaire's words sank into everyone's hearts. Gradually, heads began to nod. A feeling of unity spread among the employees as they saw their leader defend what was right. If we allow abusive or humiliating behavior to become normalized, Edward continued firmly, we're failing not only our employees but ourselves as an organization. Everyone here deserves to be treated with dignity and respect, regardless of the position or performance. As Edward spoke, his eyes returned to Sophia. I want you to know, Sophia, he said, warmth evident in his voice, that I'm here to support you and to ensure this never happens again. Your work is valuable, and you're an essential part of our team. The millionaire's words were like a balm to Sophia. She felt tears threatening to spill over again, but this time they were tears of gratitude. The humiliation she had endured began to fade in the face of her leader's unwavering support. Richard, still reeling from the unexpected confrontation and beginning to grasp the impact of his actions, started to stammer weak defenses. But Edward did not give him room to justify the unjustifiable. It was time to accept responsibility. Today is the day we must reflect on who we are as a company, Edward proclaimed firmly. We can't allow these behaviors to continue for even one more day. I'm going to implement immediate changes in our work culture to make sure everyone feels safe and respected here. His speech was met with murmurs of agreement from the employees. The tension began to ease as the environment shifted into one of positivity and hope. Edward concluded, I'm committed to working alongside all of you to create a space where every voice is heard and every person is valued. Then he turned once more to Richard. As for you, Richard, you need to reflect on your leadership style and how it affects the team. Realizing the weight of Edward's words, some employees began to smile subtly, while others exchanged looks of cautious optimism about what might come next. With this decisive action, Edward had ushered in a significant shift, not just for Sophia, but for the entire corporate culture. In that critical moment, everyone realized they were actively participating in something bigger, a transformation toward a work environment where respect and dignity would always be fundamental priorities. The millionaire's commitment would resonate well beyond that store. It would be a legacy for all his businesses and a renewed promise to all his employees. The tension lingered in the air after Edward's powerful intervention. Richard, the manager, looked visibly ashamed. The arrogance and contempt he'd shown before had vanished, replaced by a pale, sweaty face. The gravity of what had happened began to register, but rather than accepting responsibility, he tried to defend himself. Edward, let me explain, he began to stammer, his voice trembling slightly. I didn't mean to offend Sophia. I was just trying to point out some mistakes to improve her performance. Sometimes you have to be strict so they understand the importance of their tasks. Richard was looking for excuses, but his words felt hollow and forced, given the severity of the situation. Edward stared at him intently. This isn't about being strict, Richard. It's about how you communicate your expectations and how you treat the people who work for you. Sophia didn't deserve to be humiliated in public, and you should never have allowed that to happen, he responded, hiding a deep disappointment beneath his calm tone. Employees around him began murmuring, some nodding in agreement, while others looked on in disbelief at the manager's lack of self-awareness. It was evident many were tired of the authoritarian leadership style Richard had imposed. Edward's intervention had opened a space for everyone to express their long-suppressed feelings about the work environment. Richard attempted to maintain his composure. I understand I made a mistake, but I'm under a lot of pressure to meet monthly targets. I don't want this to affect my job, he said, trying to redirect focus onto his own issues. Edward was unmoved by the excuses. Pressure is no excuse for treating others with contempt, he shot back firmly. If you really care about the team's success, you should invest in building respectful and collaborative relationships, not ruled by fear. The millionaire's words resonated among the employees like an echo of hope. It was clear the workplace culture was changing at that very moment. Edward was ready to take concrete steps toward ensuring a more respectful and healthier environment. "I will speak with you later about your future in this company," Edward continued, making it clear that Richard's actions would have consequences. "All leaders in my organization must understand the importance of respect and how their behavior impacts the team." Richard felt fresh beads of sweat forming as he listened to the millionaire. He realized he had crossed the line, losing not only Edward's trust but that of the entire team. The disappointed looks from his co-workers made him feel even smaller. The support and respect he once enjoyed began to evaporate. "I'm going to implement a leadership and effective communication training program for all managers," Edward said, addressing the group around them. "This is a necessary step to ensure that incidents like this do not happen again." He looked back at Richard. "You'll have a chance to participate, but you need to show genuine change in your approach if you want to remain part of this team." The manager nodded slowly. He knew he would have to face the consequences of his actions. Still, he struggled with frustration and the fear of losing his position. The truth was clear. His management style had failed, and now he had to adapt or risk being left behind. Meanwhile, Sophia watched on the sidelines, feeling both relief and concern about Richard's future. Edward's intervention had given her strength, but she also knew that real change would require time and effort from everyone involved. The conversation ended with a collective sense of transformation. The employees were relieved to see the millionaire face the unacceptable and take concrete steps toward creating a more respectful, healthier environment. This moment was pivotal not only for Sophia, but also for the entire company culture. Edward exhaled deeply as he looked at his team, knowing there was still much work to be done. Yet, seeing the hopeful faces of his employees, he understood they were ready to move forward together into a brighter future. With that, he reaffirmed his commitment. "Today marks a new beginning," with that resonant statement. Everyone knew they were stepping toward an environment where each employee could feel valued and respected as a fundamental part of the team. The consequences for Richard would only be the beginning of the necessary process to rebuild trust and foster a corporate culture where dignity prevails above all. Edward's intervention had caused a clear shift in the store. As the tension began to subside, Sophia felt an empowering surge within her. Her boss's supportive words echoed in her mind, giving her the strength to rise above that humiliating moment. She no longer felt alone. Now she knew she had the backing not just of Edward, but also of her co-workers. Those who had previously been mere onlookers to the conflict began to feel a renewed sense of unity. The store's atmosphere shifted. The looks that once showed concern and fear now displayed determination and hope. Several employees approached Sophia, offering words of encouragement. "You were incredible," said one co-worker, giving her a hug. "You didn't deserve that. I'm so proud of you for standing your ground." As others joined them, Sophia felt the weight of humiliation gradually lift. Rather than seeing her as a victim, they now viewed her as a courageous, strong figure. Edward watched from the side, his heart swelling with pride at the difference his intervention had made, not only for Sophia, but for the entire team. He understood that changing workplace dynamics was essential to fostering an environment where everyone felt safe and supported. Employee conversations now flowed with renewed energy. They talked about their experiences and ways to work together to improve their work environment. The discussion centered on how they could communicate better with one another and share ideas on making the workspace more welcoming and collaborative. Sophia soon became an active participant in these conversations, sharing her thoughts and insights. For the first time in a long while, she felt valued and heard. The humiliation she had endured had not only been a turning point for her personally, it also awakened a spark of leadership within her that she hadn't realized she possessed. "We could set up weekly meetings to talk about what's working and what's not," Sophia suggested confidently. "That way we can all voice our concerns and find solutions together." Her co-workers looked at her with admiration. They were impressed by her ability to turn a negative moment into an opportunity for collective growth. Edward approached them, sensing the positive energy radiating. "I love hearing these ideas," he commented enthusiastically. "It's vital that everyone has a voice in this company. You all know the day-to-day dynamics better than anyone and can provide valuable perspectives." The Millionaire's affirmation further fueled a sense of empowerment among the employees. With every word exchange, the store began to transform into a place where mutual respect and support were the norm. Everyone realized they had the power to influence their work environment. What they had witnessed showed them the importance of standing together and helping one another in tough times. Conversations continued to flow, creating an environment where everyone felt comfortable expressing opinions and concerns without fear of judgment or humiliation. A new culture was taking shape. Each employee knew they had their co-workers' support. Sophia, now glowing with renewed confidence, volunteered to organize the first team meeting. She offered to coordinate it, knowing it would be an opportunity to strengthen the bonds between everyone. Her emerging leadership was met with applause and enthusiastic support. A few days later, on the day of the meeting, the store was buzzing with positive energy. The employees were excited to share ideas and set new goals together. The atmosphere was radically different. Where once tension and discomfort ruled, now camaraderie and collaboration flourished. Edward attended the meeting with genuine interest, watching Sophia lead with grace and confidence. She facilitated discussions, encouraging everyone to speak up and share ideas on how to improve the work environment. It was inspiring to see co-workers encouraging each other to speak their minds without fear of repercussions. At the end of the meeting, Edward spoke up once more. "I'm impressed by what you've accomplished today." He turned to Sophia with a sincere smile. "This is exactly the kind of leadership we need in our company. People willing to stand up for others." The room erupted in applause as a blushing Sophia returned his smile, grateful for his recognition. With every step forward, she not only regained her dignity, but also inspired her co-workers to champion mutual respect in the workplace. The transformation was evident. What had happened that day planted the seeds for a corporate culture in which every employee felt valued. From that moment on, both Edward and the employees knew they were building something truly meaningful, an environment in which personal empowerment was celebrated and respect remained the guiding principle. It was a new chapter for all of them, one filled with opportunities to grow together as a team and to face any future challenge with bravery and unity. After the intense events at the store, Edward Salazar dedicated himself to implementing significant changes that would transform not only the work environment, but also the organizational culture within his company. He knew it was time to act and make sure all employees felt valued and respected. In the days that followed, Edward organized a series of meetings with managers and employees to discuss the improvements needed. He showed willingness to hear their ideas, concerns, and suggestions. Active participation from the team was essential to building a collaborative, trustworthy environment. The atmosphere at these meetings was different. Everyone was eager to share thoughts and contribute to change. One of the first initiatives Edward proposed was a leadership and effective communication training program. He wanted to ensure every manager understood the importance of respect in the workplace and how their behavior impacted the emotional well-being of their employees. The training included workshops on empathy, conflict management, and techniques to foster a positive work environment. Additionally, Edward set up an ongoing feedback system where employees could express their opinions about management and the work environment without fear of reprisal. He knew this was critical for identifying problems before they became crises. Anonymous suggestion boxes were installed, and regular meetings were planned to allow each team member to share their concerns. Sophia, who had emerged as an influential voice within the team, was invited to help design the training program. Her recent experience gave her a valuable perspective, and her input helped create material that resonated with all employees. This decision not only further empowered Sophia, but also showed the team that their opinions were considered in important processes. Over time, the training sessions began to bear visible fruit. Managers adopted a more empathetic approach to supervising their teams. Interactions among employees became more open and collaborative. The work environment changed. What had once been a tense space now felt welcoming and supportive. The changes did not go unnoticed. Employees started voicing their satisfaction with a new culture taking shape. Smiles became more frequent, and teams worked together with renewed enthusiasm. Sales began to grow, not only because of collective efforts, but also because of the high morale reflected in the way customers were treated. Edward made it a point to visit the store regularly and observe the impact of the changes. Each time, he noticed how the employees interacted with confidence and mutual respect. The dynamic had evolved. Every individual was recognized as a vital part of the team rather than merely a resource for achieving business goals. Customers also began to notice the difference. Many commented on how significantly the service had improved and how much happier and more motivated the employees seemed. This positive shift in the work environment not only benefited the employees, but also directly influenced the customer experience, a key factor for business's success. As the months went by, Edward reflected on how far they had come as a company. The initial intervention had been a turning point. What began as a crisis had evolved into an opportunity for everyone to learn and grow. They had managed to build a corporate culture based on solid values, respect, dignity, and collaboration. Sophia's story became an inspiring example within the company. Her courage in confronting humiliation had sparked a significant change not only in her professional life, but also in her co-workers' lives. She went from being a victim to becoming a leader on her team, showing everyone that each person could positively influence their environment. Edward recognized there was still work to be done. Creating a healthy culture is an ongoing process that requires constant attention. Even so, he remained committed to promoting these values and ensuring there would be no repetition of such incidents. Each step forward reinforced his pledge to safeguard his employees' well-being and his own responsibility as a leader. He knew that fostering a positive corporate environment was crucial not just for financial success, but also for leaving a lasting legacy grounded in respect and human dignity. In this way, Edward Salazar became not just a successful businessman, but also an admirable leader, someone willing to listen, learn, and act for the collective good of all who formed part of his entrepreneurial dream. And at the end of the day, that was his greatest victory, turning an adverse situation into an inspiring story of growth and unity for everyone. If this story inspired you, don't forget to leave a comment and share this video so that more people can discover the power of believing in themselves and in others. Thank you for joining us, and see you next time.